So one of the things that's supposed to make science a community par excellence is that it's engaged in a system of self-governance that involves mutual critique. One of the ways that that gets institutionalized is through peer-reviewed journals. So in order to get your work propagated through a journal's manuscript pages is by passing a process of peer review, which is a kind of certification or validation process. Now, one of the things that looks quite different in scientific communication now is that people can share their work on preprint platforms without having to get any kind of vetting first, and then gain visibility for that work by sharing links on social media. Of course, getting more visibility on social media and sharing your work on a preprint platform all increase your citations. The number of citations you get probably informs black box algorithms that choose how to rank papers in article recommendation systems and in search engine results like Google Scholar. So you can see that not only is the communication of work very different now, but the amplification of that work looks quite different as well, and that there's a lot of sort of cross-platform interaction in these processes. Now, how can science, which is supposed to be this community of kind of mutual self-governance, continue to engage in that process and protect the trustworthiness and legitimacy of its claims? Now, one of the things that I'm seeing is that scientific institutions have gotten really creative about how this might look. So, we're all familiar with the traditional peer review model, journal peer review model, where first you have to get your piece certified through peer review in order to get your piece amplified through publication. But there are lots of different ways in which certification and amplification can look, and lots of different ways they can be related to each other. So, for example, now we have things like certification. Degree of certification can be related to the degree of amplification. So, for example, the World Health Organization created a website called Health Feedback. And what they did was they took claims that gained a lot of visibility on social media and in traditional media and held them up to scientific scrutiny. They brought in scientists to write reports about them and shared that information on their website. And in this kind of case, you can see that they elevated the level of certification needed for a certain set of scientific claims to match the degree to which those claims have been amplified. There are also other ways in which certification and amplification can be related to each other. So I mentioned before that in the case of search engine results, that they are probably based in part on the number of citations the paper receives. If you see citations as a imperfect, potentially awful measure of certification, then you can see in that kind of case that the degree to which a paper is amplified through these search engine results depends on the degree to which scientists have certified it through citations in their own manuscripts. Another way in which we see this relationship between certification and amplification get reimagined is in proposals to link amplification with certification signals. So in this kind of case, some of the examples include things like having for any given published manuscript forward links to later papers that try to reproduce the results in that paper. Here, what you have is a case where for any given piece of information, you can very quickly gather the information you would need to help contextualize and sort of certify legitimacy of that work or the reliability of that work. In all of these cases, you can see that the kinds of certification vary widely. So it's not just peer review anymore. It's including open science elements like open data or code or analysis plans. In the case of amplification, it also looks quite different. It's not just having a paper shared through journal review, but through all these other communication modalities as well. And you can also see ways in which all of these different forms of certification and amplification could work together. So for example, perhaps someone could share a paper on a preprint platform along with open science elements. In that kind of case, they are sharing or amplifying their work with certification signals. And then they can submit that manuscript to a journal. So in that kind of case, that would be amplification conditioned on certification. And then if that paper gets published and gains more visibility because of the open science elements, for example, that might be a case of amplification conditioned on certification or proportionate to certification. And then if that paper gains even more visibility, then perhaps people will then revisit the study and try to reproduce it. And that kind of case would be a case where the degree of certification is proportionate to the degree to which the paper has been amplified. All of these different ways of thinking about certification and amplification are spelled out with a lot more examples in my paper on certified amplification. Thanks.